على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين، سيما الإمام المبين والكهف الحصين وغياث المضطر المستكين مولانا وسيدنا الحجة بن الحسن فداه أرواح العالمين. السلام على النساء الحائرات، السلام على الرؤوس المشالات، السلام على النفوس المصطلمات، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: إنه من يتق ويصبر فإن الله لا يضيع أجر الصابرين. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite aloud salawat. Although tonight is about the tragedies that ensued in the aftermath of Ashura, but allow me to give a small talk. All the efforts to sabotage Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and his mission produced opposite results. Let me give you a few contemporary examples and few examples from the past. Saddam and other tyrants, of course, because this is something they have in common. They all fought against Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam because they know more than us what Imam al-Hussein represents. They know that Imam al-Hussein is about justice. Imam al-Hussein is against oppression. Imam al-Hussein is against slavery. And these are things that these people don't want. This is why they fought against Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. One of the tyrants was Saddam. He imposed a blockade on the Imam. No one, and for 30 consecutive years, was allowed to commemorate the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein, to remember the Imam, or even to visit the Imam. What harm can visiting a grave do? These people know. These tyrants know better. One of my friends who live in the United States of America, he's got a center, a religious center. He says that delivering hundreds of lectures, people benefit from these lectures, right? He said, but one ziyarah to Karbala, and the experience, the atmosphere that you live when you go to the ziyarah is more beneficial than listening to hundreds of lectures. This is why the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah was banned for 30 years. No one could beat his chest for Abu Abdullah. No one could hold a majlis for Abu Abdullah. One of the things that he did was he brought people from non-Shia areas in Iraq to hold their weddings in Karbala on the day of Ashura. So people couldn't visit the grave. People couldn't commemorate the tragedy. The haram was empty. The shrine was empty. He brought people to celebrate their wedding around the shrine of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura to extinguish that flame. Not only him, but other tyrants as well. People like Rida Khan in Iran or Ataturk in Turkey. What Rida Khan did was ban the remembrance of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in a Shia country in Iran. Imagine, people used to relive the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein, all of a sudden this guy assumes power and he outlaws the remembrance of Imam al-Hussein. All of a sudden, out of the blue. So what people used to do, only a handful of people dared to challenge the authorities. Not vocally, but they used to hold majalises in secret, in their basements, in the middle of the night. And they used to have people guarding the door of the house to see if there are any informants, any people from the authorities that have come to see what was happening. On the eve of Ashura, and they would gather in a house, say Sallallahu Alayka Ya Aba Abdullah, try to cry, shed few tears, and then they leave. All happening underground in secret. Ataturk did the same thing. Saddam did the same thing. Now after the fall of the regime in Iraq, 7 million people spontaneously, they did the march from Najaf to Karbala. And nowadays, and according to the American ambassador in Iraq, he said that we estimate the number of people that participate in the Arba'in walk to be around the 20 million figure. 15 million of these people are from Iraq. So that's a staggering 65% of the Iraqi population. And 5 million people come from abroad. Now Saddam forced the Shias into exile. Initially we thought that was bad. That was damaging to the Shias. But later on we realized that this was God's plan for Imam al-Hussein's message to spread. This happened to the Iraqis and happened to the Afghani community as well. Because of Taliban, they had to escape. They migrated. So you have a big Afghani community in Europe, a big Afghani community here in Australia, and in Canada, and in America. And all these majalises that are being held, you have majalises being held for the remembrance of Abu Abdullah in Alaska, in an igloo. People remember Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. In Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, in every corner of the world. So their efforts produced opposite results. And this was a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidah Zainab, as I mentioned one night, when she saw Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he was about to surrender his soul when he witnessed the bodies of his father and his brothers, his uncles lying on the sand dunes of Karbala, butchered, decapitated, mutilated. He was about to surrender his soul when she said to him, "Mali araka tajudu binafsik." You know what? Rasulullah said to my father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said that a standard will be raised for your father. She didn't say a standard will be raised in Karbala. No, for your father. In every corner of the world. And no matter how much tyrants try, the more they try, the more effort that they exert, the opposite results will emerge. فَلَا يَزْدَادْ إِلَّا عُلُوًّا. This happened in Iran following the fall of the Pahlavi regime. The father of the late Shah, Rida Shah, when he died, before his death, before he assumed power in Iran, there were 300 majalises being held in Tehran. But after the fall of his regime, immediately after the fall of his regime, 5,000 majalis were held only in the capital city, in Tehran. One of the reasons why we have these millions of people march towards Karbala from Najaf is because of all the pressure that these tyrants applied to extinguish the light of Abu Abdullah. But they failed. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And subhanallah, the tools that they utilize to extinguish the light of Hussein was used, so to speak, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to propagate the message of Abu Abdullah. One of the things that happened in the aftermath of Ashura was that they arrested all the women and children and Imam Zayn al-Abidin. And there was the caravan of the captives. They took them to 40 different cities. Their intention was to celebrate their victory over Abu Abdullah. Yazid had a lot of hate and envy against Abu Abdullah. He wanted to take the revenge for his forefathers that were killed in Badr and in Uhud. So he wanted to make sure that he perfects his victory. So what he did was decapitate the bodies, put them on long spears, as I mentioned last night. Even the small head of Abdullah al-Radi' was placed on a long spear in front of the head of Abu Abdullah, the head of an infant, so that everyone sees the victory of Yazid over the Hashemites. This is how they saw the struggle. It was a rivalry between two tribes. This is how they viewed it. But every town that they entered, people were celebrating. They thought that it was a joyful event. But Lady Zainab spoke. She gave a sermon. She talked about the tragedy of Abu Abdullah. And she told them that I'm the descendant of Rasulullah. I am a grandchild of Rasulullah. And look at what Yazid did to the children of Rasulullah. He claims to be a representative of Rasulullah, a successor of Rasulullah, and yet this is what he's doing to his children. And the impact was so overwhelming that the assembly of Yazid in Sham turned into a mourning session for Abu Abdullah. Even his wife, Hind, she said to Yazid, how could you do that to the child of Rasulullah? Everyone began to cry. Everyone began to sob. Everyone began to lament. Everyone began to beat their heads and chests. And that changed everything. Yazid was determined to kill even the children, to kill even the women. But after that transformation that happened in the society, he said, what do you want me to do for you? They said, we want to go to Karbala. And this is when the Arba'in happened. Now what changed all of that? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. The same thing happened to Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. His brothers decided to kill him. One of the brothers said, let's spare his life and throw him in a well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Yusuf in the beginning of the surah, he says that one day you'll tell them about the things that they did to you. So they take him away from his father. They throw him in a well. A caravan passes by. They take him out of the well. He is taken to Egypt. He is enslaved by the Aziz and his family. He stays in the palace for several years before the enticement happens. When she tries to entice him and he refuses, she threatens to imprison him. She said, do whatever you want to do. He is imprisoned for 7 consecutive years. And now, when you examine the story, you find that everything that the enemies of Yusuf did helped him rise to prominence. The first thing that happened to him was being thrown in the well. This resulted in the caravan passing by. They were thirsty. They wanted to extract water from the well when they extracted this little boy. Then he is taken to Egypt, which was one step closer to being known by the Pharaoh of the time. He stays there for 8 years. The woman tries to lure him. He doesn't commit the sin. She says, I'll throw you in a prison cell. He says, do whatever you want to do. This resulted in his inmate, who was a servant of the Pharaoh, to know about his ability to interpret the dream. So he interpreted the dream. Then when he comes out of prison, his inmate, he tells the king about his supernatural powers of Yusuf alayhi salam. So he summons him. Then he tells him his dream. The rest is history. Tells him the dream. He interprets the dream. And exactly what Yusuf told the king transpired. So then the king says to him that I want you to become my successor. He becomes the successor of the king, and later on he becomes the king. Later on, 40 years later, when the brothers come, they came to beg. They came as beggars. Tasaddaq alayna. Then Yusuf says to them, did you know what you did to your brother Yusuf? This is when they realized that it's Yusuf who had become the king of the kings. They said, Anta Yusuf? He said, Ana Yusuf, wa hada akhi. I am Yusuf and this is Benjamin, my brother. Then Yusuf alayhi salam said, Innahu man yattaqi wa yasbir. Anyone who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and displays patience in the face of the tribulations, of the hardships, of sinning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take into account all the efforts that he exerted. Inna Allah la yudhi' ajra as-sabirin. Do you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forget about these efforts? Absolutely not. This is why even the smallest details of the accounts of Karbala is mentioned in the Maqatil, and people mention them on the minbar. Everything is mentioned because of these two traits. The same God is, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah. The same God is in power. The Lord of Hussein is also our Lord. The Lord of Yusuf is the Lord of Hussein, and he is also our Lord. If we were to espouse these traits and characteristics, the same results will follow. إِنَّهُ مَنْ يَتَّقِ وَيَصْبِرْ. These are the two things that we need in life. Taqwa and patience. Now, I'll only mention 4 scenes of the aftermath of the tragedy. The first thing that happened after the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein, Lady Sakina says that I was standing beside the entrance of the tent after they killed my father. I didn't know what these people will do to us, because these people are vicious. They could do anything. Will they kill us? Will they butcher us? Will they behead us? When suddenly a man called, burn the tents of the oppressors. So they stormed into our tents, a bunch of women and children, and they set the tent ablaze. So the children started to run. Lady Zainab comes to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. She says to him, what should we do? You're the Imam now. You're the successor of Hussein. You're the Imam now. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said that you have to run for your lives. So some of them came out of greed. They participated in the war out of greed. Some of them, Ubaidullah had promised to give them 5 dirhams, 5 silver coins, if they join in the fight against the master of youth of paradise. This is what greed does to people. So some of them, when they raided the tents, they began to snatch and steal the possessions of the woman. One man came and he saw the earring of Ruqayyah, the earring of the small daughters of Hussein and his womenfolk. So they wouldn't open the earring. They would rip the ear to pull the earring. They would cry, but they wouldn't care about the crying and the lamentation of the children. So they burned the tents. They ran 50 of the children that were in the camp, in the tents, were killed in the aftermath. 50. So then they bring a container filled with water. The container is given to Lady Zainab. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam doesn't drink from that water. She gives it to another woman. The other woman gives it to another woman, until the children started to give that container to the younger ones, until it reached in the hands of Sayyidah Ruqayyah. They say that Sayyidah Ruqayyah was very thirsty, but instead of quenching her thirst, instead of drinking from that water, she takes the container and goes to the battlefield. They say to her, Ya Ruqayyah, what are you doing? Aren't you thirsty? She said, I'm thirsty, but I heard my father saying, وَحَقْ جَدِّي أَنَا عَطْشَانٍ. that I swear in my grandfather's name I am thirsty. So I want my father's thirst to be quenched. They said, your father is killed. So she drops the container on the ground and the water is spilled. The third scene was in the aftermath. They had orders. Umar ibn Sa'ad had orders from the emir, his emir, Ubaidullah, to stomp over the bodies of the martyrs. You know, Imam al-Hussein collected all the bodies and he placed them in a tent, except for his own body, of course, and the body of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. So what they did after killing Imam al-Hussein, they took out all the bodies, spread them on the ground on the battlefield, and then they brought 10 horsemen. 10 horsemen who had just replaced the shoes of the horse. Sharp shoes of the horse. And they went and they started to stomp over the bodies. That wasn't it. They then, one of the men, he alighted from the back of the horse. He said, the orders state that we should stomp over the chest and the back of Abu Abdullah. So they flipped the bodies over and they stomped over the back of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Imam Zayn al-Abidin was inside the tent. Lady Zainab was inside the tent. Lady Zainab says to Imam Zayn al-Abidin, why is it that I can hear the sound of jars being broken? Imam Zayn al-Abidin says, these are not jars. Remove the door of the tent and see what's happening. She removed the door. They saw the horses stomping over the bodies of the son of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The last scene that I want to mention is after they drank from the water, they saw in the middle of the night, Lady Zainab, she comes out. She had to take care of all the women and children that were there. All of a sudden she realized that the mother of Ali al-Asghar is not in the tent. Where is she? She called Rubab, she's not there. Where is Rubab? She goes to the battlefield. She asks one of the guards, one of the soldiers, did you see a woman walking in the battlefield? He said, yes, I saw that woman. She's in the middle of the battlefield. So Lady Zainab follows Rubab. Rubab, what are you doing? She said, oh Zainab, well, after I drank from the water, now I have milk in my breast, so I'm looking for the body of my son Ali al-Asghar to breastfeed it. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's recite together with one voice. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه